Now, I would like to call to order the Planning Board meeting of January 28th, 2021. And at this time, it's nice to see everyone. It's been a while. We need a roll call, please. Mrs. Larson,
Janet Lind,
present.
Mike McLeod,
Present.
Jim Clary,
Present.
Tim Schraps,
Present.
Denise Anderson,
Present.
Bart Riley, Josh O'Neill,
Present.
Matthew Steitzer,
Here.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was October 22nd, 2020. Do any board members have discussion or would like to recommend a plan of action?
Madam Chair, this is
Yes, Mr.
Jeremy.
Sally. Mhm.
I was missed on the on the roll call, so I'm here, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Did you get that, Mrs. Larson?
I did. Sorry, Jer.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, so does that mean you're ready to make a motion about the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as stated.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, opposed? The motion carries to approve those minutes. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing and board action regarding the zone change application for 181. And I believe the applicant is here, Mr. Hall.
How are you?
We have staff report. Mrs. Casey, is that correct?
We do, Madam Chair. Give me a minute and I'll share my screen.
Okay, and I'll just mention before we get started that this is a public hearing, so after the staff report, I'll go through kind of the procedure for that process. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Mike. Can I interrupt for just a moment?
You bet, Mr. McLeod.
Roxy, do we have a quorum without me?
Yes, we do, Mike.
Okay, and just real quick, Janet, our office was involved in the sale when the applicant, so I think it best, I'll recuse myself from voting, but of course stay on for the meeting. I think that'd be best, do you think?
Okay, I agree. That sounds
okay.
Good. Okay. And
okay, thank you.
Also, may I ask Mrs. Casey, since it is a public hearing, was this zone change advertised?
Madam Chair, I will have Roxy
Yes, it
on
was.
that.
Okay,
Yes, it was.
thank you. Proceed.
Sir, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, this is zone change application 181. The applicant is Frank Hall. This is an application to change some property that is located just east of Harrison Avenue on 5 Mile Road from R1S, which is one family suburban, to C2 community commercial zone. The applicant's requesting to change this zone for development that he would like to do. However, there are other properties as I'll show on the slide. So total, there's about 18.5 acres that would be in this zone change. The site that the applicant it's privately owned, and most of the others are privately owned. It's vacant, comprised of vacant land, and then the Butte mini storage facility is also included in this zone change. The applicant himself, his proposal is to construct a mini storage unit on his parcel. This would be the applicant's site plan of how he is proposing to put it just for your review, but tonight is about the zone change application. Here's an aerial photograph. So Here where my mouse is Harrison Avenue. This is 5 Mile Road. So as you can see in this, the red line is what would be is the 18.5 acres. The gold lines are separate property ownerships in there. So that's where we are comprised of 18.5 acres. Here on the east end is the mini storage units. This area in here that you see is not going to be part of the zone change application because it is the primary parcel that's still connected with the cemetery. So we did not bring that into the zone change. As I stated earlier, the current zoning designation of these properties is R1S, residential suburban. The reddish pink area that you see here, which are the properties primarily adjacent to Harrison Avenue, are C2 community commercial. So what this application is proposing to do is to expand the C2 zoning designation to the east end of the property of the Butte mini storages. The applicant's property itself is about 3 acres. As I stated, there were other properties in there. The applicant did get concurrence to go forth with this proposal from the Resurrection Cemetery Association. Once we received the application, staff did send out certified letters to the remaining 3 landowners. We did receive 1 response, and that was the property owned by Lawrence McClafferty. This is just east of the applicant's property. He was in favor of the change. We did not hear from the other 2 landowners. However, this is primarily staff does this as a courtesy to the landowners. There is a section within state law that to the extent that the majority of the landowners are not in favor of the zone change, then when the council votes to approve the zone change, they would need a 2/3 majority vote versus just the majority present. So they would need the 2/3 vote if those landowners, if 2/3 of them came before them that were not in. So, but we just like to let the folks know what's coming. And so that's why we sent out the certified letters. And now we'll go through the 14 criteria that's outlined in the zoning ordinance to look at to see if it meets the 14 criteria for a zone change. So the first one criteria we would look at, is it in accordance with the comprehensive plan or the growth policy? As the board knows, we just recently adopted a new comprehensive plan, and the place type for this area is listed as an economic driver. That economic driver, if you recall, is intended to support large-scale employment opportunities, typically located along our primary transportation hubs. It comprises of commercial, light, and heavy industrial activities in this area as a place type. Our zoning designation of C2 would accommodate service commercial land uses, as well as uses such as indoor storage units indoor and mini storage units as proposed by the applicant. Therefore, the proposal is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. This is just a page out of the comprehensive plan. If you recall, we do have what the future characteristics, what we want to see in here, and here is, the light and heavy industrial, mixed residential lodging, service commercial for future characteristics. And then it goes into the design characteristics, the street type, which would be an avenue, and the non-vehicular mobility, landscaping, all of that. Number 2 criteria, the second criteria is the new zoning designed to lessen congestion in the streets. 5 Mile Road, and you see a picture. This down here at the bottom of your picture would be from Harrison Avenue, and then looking east, as you can see, 5 Mile is a dedicated public road. However, it really hasn't been improved. It does have some millings on it, but it doesn't meet Butte-Silver Bow design standards. I'm just going to go to the next slide, or I guess it's not. Here's this slide for a minute. There's some unimproved roads within this that have never been improved. So this is 5 Mile Road that has the millings and is used by the residential homes on the south, the Butte Mini storage, and that for access. This here, as you follow my mouse, is a dedicated road, and also that kind of comes around. This would be the applicant's property. As it comes around, that's a dedicated road that's never been improved. So we'll go back to the criteria. However, when you look at what these roads are, the change to a C2 may create a better opportunity for improvement to the road in the future. This next slide comprises the criteria 3 through 7, where we look at if the zoning will promote the health and general welfare, if it will protect there'll be safety from fire and other dangers. Will it provide adequate air and light? Will it prevent the overcrowding of land? And will it prevent the undue concentration of population? The C2 zone and the development standards that are within the C2 zoning ordinance that's what it's about, is to protect all of those things. We have standards for stormwater controls. The standards are to promote the health and general welfare. There's setbacks for safety and the adequate air and lighting. So criteria number 8 is, will the new zoning facilitate the adequate provisions of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, fire, police, and other public improvements? There are dedicated streets as we went through to serve the area proposed to be rezoned. However, only one street is improved, and it doesn't meet, as noted, the Butte-Silver Bow standards for commercial traffic. There is currently no existing municipal water or sanitary sewer mains serving the area. The applicant's proposal doesn't require these services. It is important to note that a development adjacent to these areas would most likely require extension of these services from Harrison Avenue, because we're looking at a zone change with other vacant land, and there's all kinds of different permitted uses within the C2 zone, a lot of those which would require sanitary sewer and water. So an extension would probably have to happen for those developments, but not necessarily the applicants. If it's to remain R1S in the development, it would be unlikely that those would be extended. They would probably be private wells and septic systems, provided that there was enough vacant land for those type of services. So this slide here, again, what you see is the blue is water and the green is the sanitary sewer lines. So those are in Harrison Avenue, but they do not extend down 5 miles. So if there's any other developments that would require water and sewer, most likely those facilities would have to be extended. There's also a requirement if the property's within 300 feet of those lines, they have to, by DEQ standards and the Butte-Silver Bow local ordinance. This is a picture of the property. So what you see here is we're starting from the west, from the Harrison Avenue side. As you can see, it's relatively flat, vacant land. This here is the applicant's property. It's been fenced, and a couple of the Connex containers that he's proposing to use for his storage facility have been moved on to the property. We'll go back to Criteria 9, 10, and 11, we have grouped those together too. Does the new zoning give reasonable consideration to the characteristic of the district? Does it give reasonable consideration to peculiar suitability to the property for particular uses? And was it adopted with the view of conserving the values of buildings? The parcels directly west of the proposed zone change along Harrison Avenue are currently C2. Those are all commercial type entities. There's vacant parcels between those commercial complexes, and then the Butte mini storage is also considered a commercial use on the east end. There hasn't been any. There are to the south some residential development. However, there hasn't really been any new residential development in this area for a while. So there's just a picture of the characteristics. Primarily, that's what the Butte mini storage facility looks like. They do have a caretaker residence on the site along with the mini storage units. We'll go to criterias 12, 13, and 14. And it is, will the new zoning encourage the most appropriate use of the land? Does the new zoning correct a mistake or oversight that occurred in the past? And will the new zoning better reflect the current situation in the area of the neighborhood since the original adoption of the ordinance? As we discussed previously, the area to be rezoned would be in compliance with the newly adopted comprehensive plan as a place type of economic driver. And so it does meet that criteria and fit in. The characteristics that you do see between this area is commercial. Staff does not believe that it corrects a mistake, but the zone change would more appropriately reflect the commercial character of that district. And so, therefore, in conclusion, the zone change is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Based on our findings of facts that we went through with the 14 criteria, the planning department has concluded that the proposal is fair and equitable to all parties, and staff would recommend approval of zone change number 181. And with that, Madam Chair, I would answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Casey. Are there any questions out there that you can answer for us? Yes, Mr. Sally.
Hi, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions for staff. I think that this is it's my opinion that I think this is a good zone change, especially in the fact that it's consistent with our comprehensive plan and the area out there. I was watching the presentation here, and it sounds like the applicant plans to use conic sheds for the storage. If it's, I guess a couple questions for staff. Number one is, if they're going to use conic sheds, how is this being approved by planning? Like, you know, because there's no building permit then, there's no foundation, there's no nothing like that. And I guess the concern I have is just to the residential area to the south. Typical, most commercial, I assume that there'll be a buffer that'll be put across the south side of the property, and they'll also have to do landscaping. So I'd just like to hear what staff has to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. Mrs. Casey?
Madam Chair, Mr. Sally, this development, even though they are Conex containers, would need a building permit because those containers do need to be tied down, and it would have to meet all of the development standards, just like any other commercial property. So it'd have to go through stormwater. Yes, they would have to have landscaping. Also, sidewalk, curb, and gutter is within the zoning ordinance along any public street. So there are all those requirements. Once, if this zone change is approved, then it would go through your typical commercial property development review with all of the standards that you're used to.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts? Yes, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for Miss Casey. So just to be clear for the people that are listening, if there is any, this is just a zone change, so Mr. Hall will have to come back again with his plan. Like we won't. This doesn't get approved tonight, and he's not throwing Connex boxes out there tomorrow and putting them for storage. Is that correct?
Mrs. Casey?
Madam Chair, Mr. O'Neill, you're correct. He will not have to come back to the board, but this is the first step of the zone change. There will be another public hearing before the Council of Commissioners, and your recommendation would go to the Council of Commissioners. Ultimately, if the zone change is approved, there would be an ordinance change that would have to go through the ordinance process. So we're at the beginning steps of this. If all of that were to be approved, then we would look at Mr. Hall's development like we do any other commercial property. There's other vacant land in here. I think there's like 62 permitted different uses that could be used if it is rezoned to the C2 designation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I know the applicant is here, Mr. Hall. Before we start the public hearing, would you like to offer any other information about this proposal?
Nope, I'm good. I think it all sounds great. We're moving forward with plans, and I do have some survey work done for water retention and all that stuff. But we're working forward to meet all the new guidelines, and I'm ready. I'm excited for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any other questions or concerns before we open the public hearing? Okay, seeing none, at this point, I'd like to explain the process, and we know that it was advertised. All questions and comments should be directed to the chair, not to the applicant. We'll get back to him later. There will be 3 calls for proponents and 3 calls for opponents. Then the applicant will be able to answer questions after those comments. Then the public hearing will be closed. And after that point, the board can decide what kind of action to take. So I know, yes, Mrs.
Madam
Casey?
Chair, may I interrupt you? I should have did this at the beginning. There might be a little bit of confusion out there in the public. Tonight, the only thing on our agenda is this zone change application. The Blue Range building does not come before this board. I think there was a little bit of confusion, and so if there's any callers out there for the Blue Range Engineering Building, that goes before the Historic Preservation Commission and not this board. So I should have did that at the beginning. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is one item for public hearing tonight. Okay, well, at this time, we'll get our technology moving. We have an able person manning the phone. Everyone will have a chance to comment who would like to. So at this time, I would like to ask for the first call for proponents, people in support of this zone change. First call. Oh, the phone number is 497-5009. That's 497-5009. And it is possible to call and be put on hold. We'll give them a few seconds before we go to number 2. Okay. Second call for proponents, people in support of this zone change. And third call, proponents, people in support of this zone change 181. Now we'll shift to opponents. People who are against this zone change. First call for opponents. It looks like we have a call.
Sorry, it's my.
First call for opponents. First call for opponents. We thought we had a call.
We did have one call.
We did have a call.
Yeah.
Second call for opponents.
The phone's not back.
Oh, pardon me, the phone is taking a while to come back up, so we'll stick with first call. First call for opponents. And that number is 4975009. Thank you. Are you calling in today?
I am.
Yes, give us your name and your address before you begin.
Okay, my name is Jed Hoops, Hoops. I live at 2125 Fat Jack Road. It's one block south of this application.
Okay. Please share your thoughts as an opponent.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to ask was, they call these containers conic structures, but they're just a temporary shipping container that was used on, I think, ships and railroads and stuff like that. So are they a temporary structure?
Okay. We'll proceed with the applicant about that, but I don't have the answer for you yet.
They,
Okay.
Wait, Mr.
I have
Yes, go
should I
ahead.
just keep asking questions then, or?
No, you can ask questions to me and I'll keep track of them. And then when it's time for the applicant to respond, we'll ask him to fill in the information.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm online with you guys and I can't hear anything. It's really low.
Is this better? We'll try to improve that for you. Okay, keep going. Okay.
Janet, we can't hear what he's saying.
Going in there.
Mr. Hoops, excuse me, we've had another issue. Can you repeat your last statement there, your last question about the office?
I was just asking if there was going to be an office with this business and parking.
Okay.
Okay, and then my next question is if there was going to be any screening, on the south side of that business for headlights and traffic and stuff like that that's going to be in there. Because in the wintertime, it's going to be dark. There's going to be people in there. I don't know what he has planned for an office. But one of my other questions is with C zoning, is self-storing allowed within a building? Is that considered a building? And then
repeat that, Jeff, please?
I was wondering, is self-storing allowed within a building? Like down the street, they're in stick buildings. This is a temporary structure, a shipping container. These aren't buildings. I'm just wondering if you're in a C2 zone, I just don't know if it meets the building code, stipulations. One of the other things I think is a structured building like storage business to the east that this fits with the residential. And if you're self-storing, if so, wouldn't conic structures be better suited in a light industrial zone that does not blight the residential property next to it? Because that's the whole point of community commercial. I don't have a problem with changing from residential to community, but I think it should be done right. I think that, property in Butte, Montana is hard to find. And hopefully Butte's going to grow. And, there's going to be people that come in like the Riopels have built and that the storage facility to the east who did it right. And they're going to want to build in between them. And they're going to say, well, I'm not building there. Look what the heck they have there. But I just don't feel it's the right way. It shouldn't, are you going to make this a benchmark now for all the storage that's being built around Butte, in Butte, and, subject the neighborhoods to this? I don't think it's proper. I don't think that there's enough policy on these shipping containers. They're not built all the same. They're not the same color. They're not the same dimensions. I just don't know if you want to make this a benchmark now for any future building. I don't know. I just have questions. There's already been, I don't know how much work done there. There's 3 acres. They moved all kinds of dirt. They disrupted 3 acres of dirt. I don't know if they had a DEQ permit to do that, or if there's proper stormwater permits. They have the fencing up. They have conduit Lisa wire on it. And I was employed by the school district, and I know that businesses have to have, when it's more than 1 acre, if it's got an impervious, structure, it has to have storm water. And I don't know that the DQ or the county has wrote off on this, but he mentions in there that he has already done it. But I just look at this business and I'm thinking they've already put the cart before the horse. I don't understand how this could be done and then come back and ask it to be changed to commercial. Finally, I don't have a problem with zoning change in general, but I feel this applicant is not good for the community. It does not match existing commercial structures located east and west of the proposed area. It offers little consideration for the residential homeowners located to the south. The applicant, without any type of permitting, to my knowledge, has already installed many of the conic shipping structures along, with other stuff. He disturbed 3 acres of land without a permit, to my knowledge. I don't know. This application is a terrible idea for the community commercial zone and should not be accepted, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Hoops. Appreciate you calling.
Okay.
So we got another call.
First call for opponents. Okay, please go ahead and give us your name and address before you start.
Sharon Richter, 2115 Fat Jack Road.
Thank you, and please go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say I am against this application of the, shipping structures, just due to the unappealing nature of this application. My deck, my patio, everything, will be facing 200 shipping structures. I just don't feel that it's good for a residential area. I don't know. We already have a cement company in between 5 residential structures on Fat Jack Road, who don't care about anything. They race up and down the street at all hours. And, I have a concern for safety, with my grandkids. And my main concern is the theft, amount of theft. I can't tell you how many times I'm calling the police department because of this trailer, Copper City, being broken into daily. And we have a large amount of traffic up and down, and, people just eyeing your area. And I am facing south of where the 200 shipping structures are going to be. So, I just feel it's, planning board community commercial isn't looking out, for the neighbors in this area. Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Mike. Can I interject just briefly?
Yes, Mr. McLeod?
I think, with all due respect, we're not discussing Mr. Hall's project. We're discussing a zoning change. That being said, in fairness to the folks that are calling in, perhaps Ms. Casey can give just I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot, Lori, but a quick overview of if the applicant's project would be allowed within C2, and if so, under what conditions, and then they can make a decision if they're in favor of the zoning or not. But the project itself is not what we're discussing tonight. Fair enough?
Mrs. Casey?
Madam Chair, Mr. McLeod, yes, you're correct. The issue before you tonight is the zone change. To go further and answer Mr. McLeod's questions, yes, mini storage is a permitted use within the C2 zone. The shipping containers would be allowed provided that they meet all the requirements under the building code, which is usually tie down. We don't have design standards within our community anywhere. That's where the type of building, as they're asking, whether it be wood frame or that's where that would fall under. However, Mr. Hall does have to do the required landscaping. There is a landscaping buffer required along that south property line, buffering, because it would be across the street. If this were to be approved as a zone change, it would be across the street from a residential zone. So there would be landscaping buffering required. There would be going through stormwater permitting locally. If he's not disturbing more than an acre, or if he's disturbing more than an acre, he also needs a stormwater permit through the state of Montana. But regardless of whether it's 1 acre or less, he does need a local stormwater permit to contain his stormwater on site. Sidewalk, curb, and gutter would have to be placed out along his section of the property on 5 Mile Road. There is, even with mini storage units, there is a certain amount of parking that is required. We usually, instead of doing parking spaces, require the entrance to be paved so that dirt is not being tracked onto a public street. So there's usually an equivalent amount of paving that is done at the approach versus individual parking spaces, because usually folks are driving in and going to their unit. But Mr. McLeod is correct, and tonight it's before you is changing to the community, the C2's community commercial zone.
Thank you, Mrs. Casey. And as we realize, because we took a little pause here, there are quite a number of steps in between before this would come to fruition. And there would also be another public hearing with the board or the Council of Commissioners, and then all these other requirements. So let's continue and get back, and then we'll have a chance to talk more. Second call for opponents for this plan.
Hi, it's Sharon Richter again. I'm sorry, I got my phone, the call dropped. I know Mike had a question.
Excuse me?
I said I had a mic. I had already left my comment, and then a mic had wanted to ask a question.
You're welcome to ask a question. We won't answer it right now until after the public hearing, but yes, please go ahead.
Okay, it wasn't me, it was a mic.
Madam Chair, I don't think she heard maybe Mr. McLeod's question.
Mr. McLeod was trying to remind us all that tonight our action deals with changing the zoning classification. We're not doing any approval for this proposal that Mr. Hall is bringing before us. We're just talking about the zone change.
Okay, sorry, I misread that. Thank you.
Thank you. Second call for opponents. We have a second call for opponents. Third call for opponents regarding this change. Thank you. No additional calls are noted at this time. I believe, Mrs. Casey, I can get more information regarding some of these concerns and questions with the applicant. Is that how we would go?
Yes, Madam Chair, to the extent that any of the board wishes to have the applicant's questions answered, they can ask of staff or the applicant.
Okay. So it sounds like we had a few things that already came up. I'll try to paraphrase them as best I can. One concern was, are these going to be temporary shipping containers? Mr. Hall? Unmute yourself, please, dear. Thank you.
Yep. They will be tied down. They'll be up on concrete blocks on the corners, and they'll be tied down. I do have a lot of plans for landscaping. I did do some civil engineer work with Triple Tree out of Helena. They got me a really nice comprehensive storm water retention plan, as well as all of the grading conditions that would have to be there. I do plan on paving it through the whole area. There won't be an office with an employee. It'll just be an office with a computer that runs security system. There'll be a ton of the video cameras that have really good connection with me on if there's motion in there after hours or anything like that. So it's going to be pretty high security, as well as nice landscaping, LED lighting just through the roadway areas. And I don't know, I think it's going to look actually really nice when I'm done. It's not going to be a bunch of different colored containers and looking like just a junkyard. I plan on it'll look really nice. I have some proposed drawings of what it'll look like finished, and that was a big book that I gave to the zoning department before I started this project. So
Okay, and so with regards to the screening, will that be as high as the fence? As high, as tall as the containers?
yes.
So they shouldn't be visible for Sharon, for Mrs. Richter, looking from her patio. Would you imagine she would be able to see all of those? I know.
Well, with the way I plan on doing all the landscaping in the front, it'll be mostly just trees and just the entryway where there's a lift gate. But after that, it's just the airport, and you just kind of see the mountains above that. So I think it'll.
Okay, thank you. And it sounds like you've already started to move dirt.
I got a dirt permit when I bought the land. The previous owner had dug a hole for a house he was going to build. So all the piles of dirt were spread around the hole, and I did get permission with the zoning to move that dirt back into the hole. So we just put that back on there and leveled it off.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do any other board members have any questions for Mr. Hall? Mrs. Casey, anything else you'd like to add?
Madam Chair, I would just like to address the temporary structure. We have a lot of this, even with the sheds that you see for sale. Folks say that they are temporary. Under the building code, any structure that is in place for longer than 180 days becomes permanent. Whether it was built to be permanent or not, it is considered under building code a permanent structure.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hall, I see your button is on, but okay. Well, if there are no other questions or comments at this time then from the applicant or staff, then I would like to close this public hearing and we can continue and decide how we would like to take action tonight. And as Mr. McLeod stated earlier, we're just dealing with the zone change to go from to residential to commercial 2, I believe, C2. Yes, Mr. Sally.
Madam Chair, I guess it's just discussion for the board. I could see this become, and again, I don't want to dive down into something that we're not supposed to be here discussing, but the conic sheds do kind of make you wonder. I don't have any doubt that the applicant won't do a very nice job with it. It's probably a bigger discussion item with planning, maybe with council, if the city county should consider some type of discussion about conic sheds. There's a lot of them around town. We've all seen them, and don't know if there should be something more formal for the county to consider. It's just more or less a discussion item or just a thought on my part.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no additional comments or questions, the chair would entertain a motion to act or not act. Yes, Mr. Sally.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve zone change application number 181.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I have a question on that.
Oh, yes, Mr. O'Neill.
Thanks, Madam Chair. As far as voting or having Mr. McLeod being recused from the vote, I don't know if he actually can recuse him, because this zone change technically doesn't, I mean, it already went through one side. And I mean, so I don't know if in order for Mr. McLeod to recuse himself from the vote, we would have to vote as a committee to allow him to do that. But I don't know if he just because the zone change has nothing to do with the sale's over. It's we're on another. This is just for the zone change. So I don't. I'm not trying to call Mike out either on that, but yeah, I think he has to vote, or we have to vote to let him to decide whether he can vote or not.
Okay.
Madam
Casey,
Chair.
yeah, Mr. McLeod.
I'm sorry. Josh, and I don't disagree. I'm probably overcooking it. I just didn't want there to be somebody that could come back and say he shouldn't have voted. I agree in the zoning change, it shouldn't factor in, but I didn't, maybe I should have called, Eileen or somebody and asked, but however you guys want to handle it, I just didn't want to muddy the waters. And so I thought it best to recuse myself, but I don't know the process of doing that.
Okay, well, maybe as a board, we need to talk about that a little bit. If we would be able to take a vote and excuse Mr. McLeod from voting, and that might satisfy Mr. O'Neill with his concerns. Mrs. Casey, you have any thoughts on that?
Madam Chair, Mr. O'Neill is correct in that if Mr. McLeod does not have a financial interest in it, that is what's defined as a conflict. However, we have before on this board, because we have several folks that work for engineering firms also, that if they've been involved, even though it may not be monetary, we have allowed, as long as we have a quorum to vote, have allowed them to recuse themselves in the past.
Okay, and we do have a quorum tonight. We don't know how it's going to go, but we're kind of inside a motion here. So I guess any other discussion? I mean, if we step back and rescinded that motion and took a motion to recuse Mr. McLeod and then came back and had another motion, could we proceed that way, Mrs. Casey?
Madam Chair, yes, you could do that. And also, just for everyone, this board is a recommendation to the Council of Commissioners. So this is a recommendation only and not the final.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, I'm not hearing anyone saying, Mr. Sally, that you would remove that motion so we can make another motion.
Yeah, is that the board's opinion, is that we should just vote to recuse Mr. McLeod? Am I hearing that from everybody? Nodding? No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to recuse that first suggestion and make a motion to recuse Mr. Mike McLeod from voting on this application.
Thank you. So the first motion regarding zone change 181 has just been withdrawn, but we have a new motion to recuse Mr. McLeod. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Mrs. Anderson. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of recusing Mr. McLeod from voting on this signify with aye or nay. Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, so we have.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'm not sure we got the folks that are on the phone, Jim and Tim. The rest we can kind of see, but we'll need to know their vote also.
Okay. So we have.
This is Tim, Madam Chair. I yay.
Okay.
This is Jim. I agree.
Okay, thank you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yays and 1 nay. Is that correct? Is Mrs. Larson tallying us? Or 7 and 1? 1, 2. Well, it's a majority.
Yeah, Madam Chair, you have eight members, and so if Mr. O'Neill was the only nay, yeah, it would be 7-1.
Okay, thank you. So let's proceed. We can go to that next step, Mr. Sally.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve zone change application number 181.
Thank you. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill, second. We have a motion and a second to approve zone change 181. All those in favor with aye? Aye.
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 Those
Aye.
opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. And so, Mrs. Casey, at this point, you've identified some of the other steps that the applicant needs to follow through on. Could you further explain those to us so we're very much aware of what's going to happen next?
Yes, Madam Chair. Now there will be another public hearing before the Council of Commissioners. By law, that we have to advertise 15 days out. The Council of Commissioner meets on the Wednesdays of the month. So depending how that falls, it'll be at least a minimum of a 15-day advertisement, maybe a little longer depending, but that will be the next step in this. Is the Council of Commissioners will hold a public hearing. After that public hearing, staff will put a communication into the Council of Commissioners asking with your recommendation to approve this. The council will act on that communication. To the extent that they approve it, then they would submit it to the county attorney to draft the ordinance change. That takes 4 readings at the Council of Commissioners before, and then a 30-day period before it's codified. So we have several more months of probably at least 3 months of the zone change.
Okay, thank you. And then also all the requirements that the applicant would need to satisfy would take place after hearing the result from the Council of Commissioners then.
Madam Chair, members of the council, that's correct. Until that zone change is codified, up until that time, the applicant's application for his storage unit facility isn't a permitted use. So he has to wait until such time as the, and to the extent that the zone change does get approved and codified by ordinance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and at this point, other business is the next item on our agenda. Mrs. Casey, do we have anything else to discuss tonight?
Madam Chair, we don't have any other business. I would like to, now that the vote is over for the zone change, discuss, Mr. Sally brought up the shipping containers and whether they're the right thing for our community or not. I will let you know that staff does work for you as the board members. And to the extent you want us to look into it and do some research, see what other communities are, you know, we always look to Bozeman, Helen, and that. If you want us to look to see what they're doing or come back with a recommendation on these type of facilities, Mr. Sally's correct. We're seeing them on the residential properties. You see them, Walmart, Bob Ward's, and other places use them as extra storage for their retail. We are seeing more of them. They're fairly reasonable, and so if you'd like us to discuss or to look into that, this board does have the authority to direct staff to do that.
Madam Chair, I agree with Mr.
Yes.
Sally.
Is that you, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would like to direct the staff to do some research on that.
Okay.
Because they're popping all over town, and it kind of is worrying somewhere they're going to go next.
Okay. Sounds good. And just because I don't know what, could Mr. Sally, could you explain what the definition is of that type of container? Is that an abbreviation for some type of cargo container? Or?
Yeah, I've just always heard them called like conic sheds. You know, I think that's correct. They're usually used for like a shipping, shipments on a ship, container for those types of things. And there's just, they're pretty typical. I'm not no expert in them, you know, and I think that again, as the applicant discussed, like if they're all the same general dimension and, you know, painted the same stuff, I think they could be nice, but we're seeing some that aren't so nice or a little bit don't look maybe with what we want in the community. And so that's where my comment came from. But yeah, just those steel containers with the doors on the end.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mrs. Casey, I guess you can direct that more research is done regarding that for us in the future.
Okay. Madam Chair, I don't believe, at least right now, we have any agenda items for the February meeting. However, if you want to meet, the staff could let you know what we have come up with for the February meeting, or if you want to wait until you have action items, that's entirely up to you. Just give us some direction and time frame, and we can come back with what we have found.
Okay, do any board members have thoughts regarding that? Waiting till March perhaps instead of February? Giving you a good 2 months to gather information? How do people feel?
I think that's fair.
worth. Okay, Mr. McLeod, anybody else? Do you suspect that we might have business action items in March, Mrs. Casey?
Madam Chair, we may, either way, we could have a working session, if not in March. That would be much appreciated. That'd give us a little extra time to do that. And so either way, we could set up a working session, or we may have some agenda items. The other thing that staff is going to start to work on is the sign ordinance that former Chief Executive Palmer put together a committee. So we will hold our first meeting on that with that committee in February. So sometime in the near future, I shouldn't say near, but sometime in the future here, you'll be acting on probably some recommendations of a sign ordinance also.
Okay, that sounds good. It looks to me the last Thursday in March is the 25th.
Correct.
Okay. And I think school is out for a whole week, but I don't know if it's that week or the following week. I don't know if that would affect people's availability, but we'll check into that and see. So, okay. Well, if there is no other business or discussion, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning tonight? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody want to stay longer?
Madam Chair, this is Tim. Lori, could you maybe stay on after? I'd like to get figured out why both these meetings we've had, I've not been able to, get our screen going. So maybe we could mess with that if you have 5 minutes.
I'd be happy to, but I wonder if one of our IT people might be better, Janet, up there. Could they help Tim?
Can you help Tim?
No one can help Tim.
Good luck. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Will they try?
See you. Be safe.
See you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.